This session is, as I said, a sort of surprise addition to it, and really it's about, as one of the panelists just said to me earlier, how do we make projects move, and how do we get them started, and how do we, populate them with the people with the skills and capacities and capabilities to really move them forward. And we're talking about largely startups, but also we'll be talking about SMEs too, and about the connections, the cross connections that are needed in order to be able to get projects moving and off the ground. So I hope it's going to be an exciting session. Let me introduce all of the speakers. Right next to me is Assunção Cristas, who is Head of Council VDA and Professor at the Nova School of Law, and also, as many of you will know in this room, a former Minister of the Seas, and in fact the minister that persuaded the Economist group to come first to Lisbon to hold our World Ocean Summit, for which I'm deeply grateful. Thank you, Assunção. Next to Assunção is José Guerreiro, who is professor at the Faculty of Sciences in the Lisbon University and general coordinator of the Mare Startup program. I get that right, I hope, Professor, at the Lisbon University. Welcome, José. Next to José is Masanori Kobayashi, who is the Senior Research Fellow at the Ocean Policy Research Institute, which is part of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, and Sasakawa Peace Foundation is very helpfully supporting this particular discussion. Thank you so much, Masanori. And of course, last but not least, Thomas Kessler, who is the Principal Finance Specialist at the Asian Development Bank, and here to give us a perspective from multilateral banks. One group of people that we don't have here, one sort of group, is really the entrepreneurs themselves. So I'm hoping that from the floor, somebody will be able to pipe up at some point to tell us a little bit about your own experiences and also contribute that very important perspective, which we're unfortunately missing in that last chair here at the moment. So let's start, shall we? Masanori, I'm going to ask you just to jump in first and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with ocean management and sustainable blue economy strategies. Tell us a little bit about that and how that relates to this particular subject.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you everybody for coming over here. Our institute has been undertaking a research and policy dialogue for ocean conservation and sustainable blue economies. And one point we often encounter is that our funders, investors, they say that they have money to invest, but they say that they have a hard time in finding the right project to invest. And when we go to like Pacific Island countries or Asian countries, they say that they are struggling to get funding. They don't know how to get funding. So there's obviously a gap between funding and also the recipient demands. Ocean, as you know, that it's a very cross-sectoral and interdisciplinary areas. And when we go to the, for instance, offshore wind power project sites, energy experts, they all know energy, but they have to know fisheries, for instance, how to deal with fishermen in order to promote offshore renewable energy. This is huge investment opportunities, and they know all the civil engineering, etc., but they don't know much about how the marine ecosystem, coastal ecosystems, and how to deal with very stubborn fishermen who have been doing fisheries over generations. And this is stakeholder management is one of the key. Ocean warming is another new challenge, and we see an outbreak of sea urchins that are depleting all the seagrass in the bays in Japan, and maybe same for others. What the fishermen do actually to promote collaboration with scuba divers or the snorkelers and the volunteers to collect all the sea urchins that are almost empty. But now they put it in the tank and they start working with agriculture farmers. And they used to discard all the outer leaves of the cabbage, and that outer leaves cabbage that were otherwise discarded are now used as a feed for the sea urchin to fatten the sea urchins that are now marketed through the supermarkets. They have never sold sea urchin in the past. So that kind of stakeholder partnership really require new knowledge, new leadership, and new startups, new business models. And as we've been discussing with Charlie, as to how we can really support, particularly Asia Pacific, Caribbean, and Africa, in terms of building human resources, leadership, and the business model for achieving sustainable blue economies. We have come to Lisbon University. They have a wonderful startup training program, and we see how that kind of successful practice can be replicated to other regions, including Asia and the Pacific and others. So this was a bit of background as to how we have come here to discuss this topic at this session. Thank you.
Are you finding, in a sense, a lot of demand from the people that you're working with, particularly in the Pacific Islands and elsewhere in Asia, for just this kind of interdisciplinary training? Do they sort of ask you a lot for these skills? Are they asking you to help transfer these skills?
So there are lots of students who study coral reef or who study fishery, but they have a little knowledge about how to assess the market demand, how to sell the products, and how they can really modify the services they can provide for the newly emerging market for the blue economies. So that is a reason why people are asking how we really try to support the human resource and the leadership development with the new concept and the policy goals of the sustainable blue economies.
I think you put your finger on something that's really important there, and I hope we can continue to discuss this, and that is this sense that there is a sort of, a startup, those that are entrepreneurs don't always, they have great ideas, but they don't always have the right market sensibilities. They're not able to somehow translate what they know, what they've come up with as an idea into a marketable idea, but also a real business idea. Jose, can I come to you, because I know that this is exactly what you're trying to sort of build and encourage in your MARE startup program. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. Good afternoon to you all and to my colleagues from the panel. Actually, back in 2015, we faced a problem at the university, and also when this new ideas of blue economy and blue growth were growing. And the key issue to develop blue economy, it's to boost blue entrepreneurship, innovation in the existing companies and creating new companies. The problem that we identified, particularly at the level of the university, is that people were not being trained to develop their ideas and to transform their ideas into business plans. And so what we did was to create a program. Actually, it's an accelerator dedicated mostly to the students at the university, but also for those who already accomplished their studies, by training them to develop their ideas, by teaching them how to develop and to create the possibility to enter the market, and also to develop an ecosystem where they can feel comfortable to develop their ideas and have simultaneously, which is very important, the support from lawyers, from technicians linked to the ocean sciences, and also the necessary support to reach the money that Rasonar was talking about. So it's a program that was supported by a consortium, which is backed by the MARE Center, which is the biggest research center in Portugal, with several capacities, from aquaculture to biotech or engineering, but also with the Catholic University, particularly the law school and the business school, and also with a private company, which it's the only company that we have in Portugal for risk assessment and rating. And this consortium provided the right ecosystem to develop these new ideas and these startups beginning. Because the problem is the lack of training in the university for students to be able to develop, to bring their research to a business and to a successful business. This is a bottleneck. Yeah. The other bottleneck that we are trying to overcome, it's about ocean literacy. And it's very hard to develop a good ecosystem for blue entrepreneurship if the society doesn't know anything about it. Or even the major stakeholders, for instance, the bank system, does not feel comfortable with the investment in this new blue economy. So we are also developing, even from the high school, specific pilot programs, training young students of the 12th grade to develop not only their ocean literacy about the sustainability of the ocean, but also trying to give the first steps on blue entrepreneurship. Actually, we developed this program, which is an EE grant funding project for the first time last year, and now we are scaling it up. So the idea is to fulfill this gap, training, capacity building to develop blue entrepreneurship.
And I mean, obvious question, I think, is how many, is it well populated, your program? Are there lots of people that are really interested in trying to sort of understand how to make this move to blue entrepreneurship?
I would lie if I said it's overcrowded. It isn't. And that's the problem. Because
why do you think that's the problem?
Because for decades and decades, this was not a subject at the university. At the higher levels of training, this was not a subject. Yeah. And so we are trying now to fulfill. But yes, I can say I have a dozen of startups that are going on. Yeah. And each and every year we open a call. We launched the first international summer schools on blue entrepreneurship, together, for instance, with the Alfred Wegener Institute of Germany and the Plymouth Laboratory, and also our partners from Norway, GCA Ocean Technology. And it's beginning to move. But yes, there is still a lot of work to do. We are lacking, and for instance, people from venture capital always complain we need bigger projects. Yeah. And so one of the bottlenecks is to finance the early stages of the startups, the pre-seed money.
I think that is the classic problem, isn't it? The scaling of the projects, finding projects that are investable at a level that banks and financial institutions and venture capital wants to invest in.
In short, if I may, it's easier to find 1 million euros than 10,000 euros. Yeah. That's the problem.
I wish that was always true, but since you also have started a university program, which I think is really fascinating, a law program, given your background as a lawyer. How does that link in? And I think this lovely idea of sort of ocean literacy and your idea, I think, of the oceanic generation. How does that link in with that? And what are you trying to do to put the various pieces together?
Well, thank you, Charles, for the invitation. It's very good to be here with you. Thank you all. First, my life has an academic part and a political part. And when I came back to my university, what I figured out is that we normally think in our different boxes. So law is law, economy is economy, biology is biology, and so on and so on. But the whole world outside, it's not like that. It doesn't move like that. So we need to bring people together to make sure that they can talk to each other, that they can at least understand the minimum of what the others are doing and of what the others are saying and are trying to develop. And when I came back, my School of Law had already this very good master's degree on law and economics of the sea, ocean governance, but I changed a little bit that. I teach ocean policies, and we changed it to English. We made some very good changes, and we're happy to say that we're now #1 worldwide. We were number 4. We are #1 by the Universal. And what we changed again is that the Nova School of Business and Economics stepped in. So next September, we will be two different schools, law and business and economics. Why? Because we wanted students to have proper courses, namely on entrepreneurship. So, of course, not all of the students want to start companies or work in companies. Lots of them want to work on public policies, on public institutions, on international institutions, and so on and so on. But what we feel is that we need to have a broader perspective. We need to make people from a law background to learn economics and to learn other sciences, and people that come from other sciences to learn law and economics. And I have to say that I'm very proud because one of our best students concluded a master's last December, and she came from biology. So she had an undergraduate study in biology, and she came to this master's degree, and she did very well. She did so good that she wants to move on for a PhD on law and economics and things like that. So it works. Yeah. But what I feel is that we need to go deeper on that. Where do I see the lack? I see the lack, well, of course, we need to have programs since the very first early years of education, and we have in Portugal, and I'm looking at Tiago Piticunha from Fundação Oceano Azul, we have programs on that. At my time in the government, we had the Kit do Mar, Kit for the Ocean, that was, well, some materials organized and launched to the schools so that could be properly used by professors and students. Now we have the Blue Schools. We have a lot of institutions supporting that. What I felt is that we needed to have an undergraduate degree fully dedicated to the ocean because of this need of interdisciplinary views, of people knowing a little bit from everything so that we can create an oceanic generation. We can build a group of people that actually know what are the needs, what are the obstacles, what are the opportunities, and know exactly where the good expertise is. Of course, it's in biology, it's in people that work in bioeconomy, in biotechnology, in blue biotechnology, people that work in these very highly sophisticated systems and data information and all that, but we need people to have a common core of knowledge and to share a common language that profoundly knows about the ocean. That's why we are right now preparing the Bachelors of the Ocean, and that brings not 2 schools, but 5 different schools from Nova universities, law, economics, social sciences, technology and information, and also the University of the Algarve and Évora. We're waiting for the accreditation to launch this Ocean BA, and the idea is, and when people ask me, what are these people going to do? Well, I normally answer whatever they like to, but hopefully we will provide them with the necessary tools to start companies, help companies. There's a lot of companies that need fresh ideas, people that come with different views to insufflate these views into the old companies, but also people that will work in the public sector and in NGOs and foundations and all that. But at least they share a common language.
So would you agree that there is a gap in trying to bridge ideas with a market sensibility, and that somehow what you're trying to do, along with the MARE program, is to bridge that gap?
Definitely, and from my other points of observation, that is VDA, and also Indico Blue Capital, that's a venture capital fund, what we see is that there's very good ideas at university, but it's very difficult to transform those ideas into bankable good business that will come to venture capital, come to law firms and all that, and they have something to work with and to scale up. And this, I feel that needs a lot of work from universities, and Maris Startup and VDA is also a partner of Maris Startup. There's a lot of work that has been doing the last years, but still a lot to be done. And first, people need to know a little bit more about the ocean.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they will not, and then bridge that. And when I say people, people from different backgrounds, so that they can mobilize their own knowledge and apply it to the ocean issues.
Yeah.
I think that is something that's why this master's degree is turned to be law and School of Business and Economics, to see if people that have a business and economics background come to this and gain some knowledge on the ocean and start using their own knowledge to build more companies and startups and help SMEs to run differently and so on and so on.
So I think that's the perfect segue to Thomas. I mean, you're one of the big concerns, living in Asia myself, I know this, one of the big concerns in Asia is this question of A, identifying investable projects, and B, getting the right skill sets behind them and being able to scale them. And I know that's something that you're deeply concerned with. Tell us a little bit about what the ADB as a development bank is doing around this.
Well, thank you very much for having me here and for being able to represent ADB. And I will come to that, but I would like probably just to give a little bit of flavor. I think not everyone is aware what the Asian Development Bank is. We are a multilateral development bank. We have 68 government member countries, developed and non-developing countries. And 40 of these developing member countries are eligible to grant to non-sovereign and sovereign loans, equity and guarantees. And these are all in Asia, of course. That's our focus. And we are extremely committed to healthy oceans and sustainable blue economy development. We have launched an action plan in 2019, committing by 2024 $5 billion that would be invested in order to develop sustainable blue economies. We are well on track. We have 2.2 billion of dispersed operations and projects, and we do have a pipeline by 2024 to reach that goal. But we can do more, and we need to do more. And so this program is really focusing on restoring coral, coastal and marine ecosystem, to build resilient coastal communities, to promote inclusive livelihood, to grow sustainable blue economy, and to contribute to the food security in Asia. We do have finance and financial instrument. For instance, we issued a blue bond of 3 million. We have lots of funds provided by our member country donors that are ready to deploy. But one of the big issues is really, the business pipeline, the investment, business case. And here I would like actually to outline the various regional hubs and funds and initiatives that we are creating in order to bridge this financing and to develop this business. So we do have hubs like ADB Venture, which is a specific entity that looks at seed equity into startups and to help them really to get to know and to develop their business. We do have Blue Sea Finance hubs, Blue Southeast Asia Finance hubs, and Blue Pacific Finance hub, which is financing instruments that help the government to establish the enabling environment so that businesses can grow and that entrepreneurship is actually taking place. So these are then all really focusing on developing startup and leadership, which is the topic. But I think in Asia, we also specifically need to understand that there is an economy there. There are SMEs already existing. It's actually 40% of the GDP. It's 70% of the job. It's 90% of all the enterprises. And they have a direct impact, for the time being, perhaps more negative on the environment and on the ocean. And so what we have established, together with the help of Ocean Assets Institute, is actually to create a platform which is called SME Blue Impact, which is copied by a model which the European community has established, which is called SME Blue Invest, and which looks at financing SMEs that want to convert into becoming more blue and green, and they need access to finance in order to get there, in the range of some $100,000 up to 10 million, and that's exactly the space where, for the time being, which is missing. So neither development bank, neither the private sector is providing money in that space because it's too risky. And so this platform is to identify and help these SMEs to establish profitable, bankable business cases that are replicable, scalable across Asia, that are aggregated into portfolios, and then where private sector investors can be coming in together with some catalytic finance from our side.
So I guess you're sort of asking the question, what is a startup? And you're starting at the point of an SME rather than the point, I think, which is a little bit earlier here.
So I guess I think it's both, indeed, right? Because we need the startup and the new ideas, but we have SMEs that need to, take them up. So if there has a startup which creates a new technology in the seafood processing, for instance, well, there are thousands of seafood processing SMEs already there who can take up this idea and implement it, but they need financing and they need access to finance. But perhaps the last point I want to make also, where we investing a lot, it's in the education sector. So we need to be mindful that, especially in Asia, but in other emerging markets, there is a problem of literacy, financial literacy, environmental literacy, and so it begins really at school and then at university. So we need, and we have spent 15 billion of financing also into that space. So this is probably an additional element which we need to consider, and where multilateral development banks can help.
So I wonder if you just have or able to share any examples of some of these investments that you're making into SMEs. What kind of things are you looking at?
Yes, so I mean it's across the blue, the sustainable blue economy, which are different segments from seafood processing, seaweed, aquaculture, but also in the area of green and resilient ports, of shipping, of pollution. So many SMEs that have an impact. But I would like actually to take one example, where we have these different SMEs that need to work together. So you have marine protected areas, and we are supporting business models that manage these marine protected areas in a sustainable way and a profitable way. So you may have tourism entities and companies there. You may have the fisher corporation. You may have the seaweed element, and all of them need a model that is sustainable and that is profitable, and they need access to finance. And so, that's what we are trying to bring together. There are good examples. The requirement, the investment, is perhaps a few 100,000 or 2 million, and that's very difficult on a standalone basis. But if we help to make the case, and we bring this case to the private sector investors, and we create aggregated portfolio which lead to de-risking, there will be a match. And this basically, there's a huge potential, because we have identified, with the help again of Ocean Asset Institute, that alone the financing gap for SMEs in Asia Pacific is about $2 trillion of US dollars.
I turn around and the room's filled up even more. I do want to get comments and thoughts from the room, and I see a question down here. If we can bring a microphone there, or a comment. It doesn't have to be a question, it can be a comment. Just there. Yeah, thanks. I mean, and if there are any entrepreneurs and or people who are just right at the early stages of startups who are experiencing some of these problems. I got 2 more questions over there, it looks like. Please do pipe up. I'd love to hear from you. Yes, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Very quickly, my name is Luke. I'm known as the Coastline Runner. I've run most of the east coast of England, collecting shoreline plastic and engaging with councils and authorities about what to do about this massive problem. And today, I'm really representing the Crown Estate, who are one of our clients. And I'll just ask the whole panel, what project are you aware of that is best for reducing pollution of our oceans, bearing in mind that in the next 30 years, the rate of plastic plastification of our oceans is going to treble. Something has to be done. Are you at all aware of anything that's exciting? And if it's exciting, why? Thank you.
Brief answers, if you will. Asansa, anything coming across your...
Well, just came across my mind, well, the work that so many institutions and NGOs are doing. I can recall the cleanup, ocean cleanup, that has a huge program around the world to take plastics out of the ocean and to use these plastics as a raw material for other things in this circular economy approach. But there's a lot of different institutions, NGOs, foundations that are working hardly in this area. And at university level, of course, there's a lot of research in these topics. So I'm always optimistic. I guess solutions are there and will scale up.
Yeah,
any other thoughts?
Perhaps
yeah.
I can.
Thomas.
Perhaps I can also give an example, because Plastic Free Ocean is one of the flagship that our Healthy Ocean Action Plan is supporting, and you know, there's a lot of people much more knowledgeable working on that. But you know, we just discussed about you know, in Indonesia there's a lot of plastic that is actually going, you know, ending up in the islands of Indonesia. Sometimes very remote places where you know, local communities are there, and so there are programs that are coming up which help communities to get aware of collecting them, and then creating SMEs that are you know, with pyrolysis system, putting them back into oil and petrol, and so they actually will benefit from having access to energy in order to operate their boats. Of course, they're going to be more sustainable going forward because they're going to have some incomes. They're going to be able to invest into more environmental friendly shipping, and so there is really again a circular economy, because that will also help you know, to attract tourism and to create again some new tourism entities. So this is really the approach we are looking at. There are many, I think, ideas, but how to bring these ideas on the ground and to make them in such a way that finally you know, the communities on the ground may benefit from them, and that they create business synergies you know, around it, and create new and attractive business models.
So, Masnori, briefly, I'm conscious that we're
briefly,
sort of running out of time.
One project in Palau, this waste management plant was created with Coral State and the Japan International Corporation Indices. What they do is they really collect plastics waste and then convert it to ethanol and generate a fuel. And then they also collect discarded bottles. And then they convert it into the artwork and the glasswork. And they say that made in Palau souvenir to sell this glass work from the recycling materials. And that is a very good practice, but it took 10 years. to successfully run. And it's only applicable for Coral State, the commercial main center of the country. All the remote islands, they don't have that kind of system. So it's a long way, and we have to find a way how we can scale up that kind of good practice.
I'd like to come, there were two questions down over here, please, yes.
Thank you.
Could you just say your, sorry, I should have said that before, just say your name and your organization, if you could, please.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Kaisar Ahir from Indonesia. I'm the director of Indonesia Blue Economy Center at Indonesia College of Economics. We are the research center and business development center in Indonesia focused on blue economy. So it's an honor for me to be here, and I really appreciate the IDB as the bank concerned with the blue economy. So we have developed two things. First one, we have developed master's degree with the concentration of blue economy business management in Jakarta at the Indonesia College of Economics. And we can collaborate, Madam Kristas and Professor Yose. We can develop some collaboration maybe to incubate new entrepreneurs in blue economy. And to Mr. Thomas, I have the question. We have developed the Blue Economy Company Index to identify and certify maritime companies in running their business meeting the blue economy principles to support SDGs in the coastal states. So, is it possible to ADB to finance or to fund us to organize, to conduct the pilot project to certify maritime companies to be blue economy companies in the world, for specifically in ASEAN region? Thank you.
It doesn't get more direct than that, does it? I love it. Are you going to put the money on the table, Thomas?
Well, I think, you mentioned two important things, right? And we can take this up bilaterally. But I think, one thing is, the indicators, right? In all the activities and all the businesses that is financed, and that's part also of what we are doing in the SME Blue Impact pilot project, is to come up in these various different sustainable blue economy segment with the standards, the guidelines that are existing from different perspectives, from the government perspective, the MDBs, from the investor, in order to make sure that we have a catalog of indicators that make sure that we are ESG impactful, and that we avoid the green, the blue washing we are talking about. So I think whatever initiative in this regard helps, we'll look at.
Yeah. Can I suggest you take the conversation up with him afterwards? I think you raised. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Another question, please.
So going back to the early part, sorry. My name is Jahed. I run Cerulean Ventures. It's a pre-seed and seed fund focused on nature tech, oceans, etc. I'll keep it quick. You folks mentioned something early in the conversation around pre-seed and seed funding for these ventures. So from my vantage point, there's probably 20 or 30 co-investors for us at this stage where we're looking at tech, at supporting early stage founders. What we've seen is there's a big gap between pre-seed and seed and growth. So basically like Series B, where founders have demonstrated technology efficacy, but there's still pre-revenue. And so they need help getting to that stage where a growth fund or an institutional like a foundation or the ADB will come in. So I'd like to understand, is that a perspective that you're seeing as well? And if you are, what can we do to support those founders at Series B to achieve growth stage and scale?
Good Lord, we might have to have the finance expert here to actually answer that, Thomas.
Well, can I just again come up on this pilot we are doing very specifically, which is called SME Blue Impact, and I think that's really building up on other more hubs that I mentioned, ADB Venture, for instance, or Blue Finance Accelerator, which is really providing this first seed. But then as the business is growing, right, you need access to CapEx and to larger investment. That's where SME Blue Impact is coming, where together with the help of Ocean Asset Institute, who have great experience actually in developing such a model in Europe, which is called SME Blue Invest, which is exactly taking those stages and make them investment ready. So help them to make a business plan and to make the pitch to the private sector investors who are here. There's so much money, but we need them actually to make that pitch, and that's what SME Blue Impact is helping. And you will hear a little bit later, I think in the day there will be a session, and Michael Adams will talk more about that. But that's really to take them to this next stage.
There was another question down here, yes, and then we'll come there. Please, if you could just get the mic down here. The microphone down here, please. There we go. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Bill Collins. I'm chair of Cascadia Seaweed. We're in the North American context, and we are exactly the company that you folks are talking about, both from the perspective of ocean literacy and training at a university level, because I'm in my 5th decade of being an ocean entrepreneur. We have to pass the torch on to the next generation. They have to be equipped, and they don't have 20 years to make themselves in a position to do good for the planet. We have to do that now. So my question to the panel, and I'll say we've raised about 8 million Canadian thus far. We have become the largest seaweed cultivator in North America, and the reason was quite simple. We don't have decades to wait. So when you take a normal business, you would expect a 20 to 30-year runway to give yourself the time to make the mistakes without them costing you money. We're in a position where we have less than a decade, obviously, to get to 2030, and many of our targets are set as that starting point where we have to make the change. So I urge everybody in the room to think about SMEs, to think about this exactly late stage Series A, moving to Series B. Seaweed cultivation in particular is a very expensive business. Anything you put in the water is very expensive. So please come together. You have a question?
Can I ask you what you would have needed at the beginning of your process that you didn't have that would have made the difference?
Time. Because
Time means money.
we can bring the good ideas to market. We're missing today that gap that Mr. Kessler mentioned. It's, for example, we know to do this correctly, and by the way, we don't own the farms. Coastal communities and First Nations own the farms. We own the front end on the science side, and we own the back end in trying to develop the markets so that reasonable prices can be paid to these people to farm. So time is of the essence, and to come together to look at companies such as ourselves, we need 10 more companies like us to really demonstrate the unit economics. And it will come down to unit economics in the end.
And did you have a sense of how to create right at the beginning? Because I assume you're a scientist, is that right? Yeah.
Marine geologist.
Did you have the sense, the understanding of how to create the business model and the sort of the business plan that was needed in order to be able to scale it?
Yes, I did because of my experience in being a marine entrepreneur. But being a marine entrepreneur is unlike anything. It's like rolling jelly uphill. So you take a very challenging, any business is challenging, 1 in 10 fail, and you put it in the marine context, and it's probably closer to 1 to 100 fail. Yeah. So the support, and I really applaud the session because the support at all levels is really necessary. We have a large nut to crack here, and all hands on deck to get it done.
Great.
Can I just comment something? I guess this is one of the reasons why it is so difficult, because when you compare where to put your efforts and your money, there's always something easier to do inland. Yeah. So you have to transpose that barrier that is really wanting to do something very different and willing to take the risk and to do something really innovative. And there's not so many people willing to do that. Yeah. I guess that once we join this with the needs and the sense of urgency, once we look at what the planet is asking us to do, then we can make some cases that really put some extra benefits in working in the ocean. And once we find that possibilities, then I guess we will have more pros to work in the ocean than disadvantages. But I guess this is really one of the most difficult topics.
Yeah. I
It's
have
the
time
cost
for
of opportunity.
one more question, if I may. Oh, you have the microphone. There we go. There we go.
Microphone is power. I worry as I listen to this if we're not applying conventional behaviors on unconventional enterprise. So the business school model and the law school model and the banking model, to my way of thinking, are incompatible with the actual needs of a new way of being an entrepreneur in this world, whether it's ocean or otherwise. So I don't hear things like the ocean cluster movement, where there's a proration of collaboration and expense. I don't hear any talk about definition of risk, because every deck I ever see is exactly the same, and it's all based on essentially trying to satisfy conventional ideas and definitions of risk. Accounting is completely incompatible because we don't fully account for the true value of anything that we do in these enterprises. So I worry about this group essentially not meeting by using our imaginations and our own entrepreneurial creativities to actually meet the needs.
Thank you so much. And that's an interesting observation. I'm going to ask, Jose, did you want to reply to that very briefly? And Assunção, very briefly, because we've got 1 minute and a half to do so.
Half a minute. That is the key issue, because to be an entrepreneur in the ocean is not business as usual. This is a different business. And so to build this new blue economy, we do need a new approach at the financing model, sustainability model, and the banking system. And that's the key issue. It's not business as usual. It is a different business.
Assunção, the last word.
I totally agree. That's why we are preparing a new cycle of studies, a new degree that is totally different from what we have now. And really, it's not law, it's not economy, it's not management, it's ocean. And the idea is to create an oceanic generation because it's so different.
I am sorry, we have run out of time.
Actually, I agree with Professor Chrysis. We are launching also a postgraduate course, which is sea science and business innovation.
Right.
And mixing all these cultures. It's different.
I don't know whether that's answered your question, and it may not have done. We didn't have enough time to do it justice, but thank you very much for all those questions. Thank you very much to our wonderful panel, to Assunção, to Jose, Masanori, and Thomas. Thank you. That's the first session. I think we've started off in the way that I hope we all hope to carry on. Sorry we didn't manage to get some of the questions in, but thank you. Those people that are going to the ocean and data discussion, that is in another room. And you'll need to go across to that room. So we look forward to seeing you there. Otherwise, please stay here for the Blue Finance track. And thank you.